Welcome, everyone. I'm Maggie Martin, the BlogPaws blog manager. I'm here with BlogPaws co-founder Yvonne DiVita and our guest today, Pamela Slim. Pamela is an award-winning author, speaker, and leader in the new world of work. She spent the first 10 years of her solo practice as a consultant to large corporations such as Hewlett-Packard, Charles Schwab, and Cisco Systems, where she worked with thousands of employees, managers, and executives. In 2005, she started the Escape from Cubicle Nation blog, which is now one of the top career and business sites on the web. She has coached thousands of budding entrepreneurs in businesses ranging from martial arts studios to software startups. Her new book, Body of Work, was released with Penguin Portfolio in January 2014. There you go.
So thank you, Maggie. I am so excited about having Pam Slim. I just cannot tell the BlogPaws community loud enough that this lady just embodies and personifies everything we're about, because she's about helping people learn how to escape from cubicle nation, so to speak. You know, Pam, you and I go back a little bit, back to the early days. I was a big fan, still am, of Escape from Cubicle Nation. And as I go through Body of Work, wow, recommend this highly to our community. It's just that next step. It's just that next thing. And I really would love to have you kind of talk to us about what convinced you, what inspired you to do this? I mean, to be on your own, to take charge of your life the way you did.
Yeah, well, I started the journey 20 years ago. It's probably because I didn't know any better. And I have a huge tolerance for risk. Just ask my mom and dad, right? Like sometimes like really not a good tolerance for risk, you know, sometimes that's really good, sometimes it's not. But way back, now it's my 20th year in business, in 1996, I was 30 years old and I had been working full-time quite joyfully in a large corporation. I am not anti-corporate at all. I know it shocks people having written Escape from Cubicle Nation. I'm pro people finding work that brings them joy in a work mode that makes sense for that stage of their life, you know? So I enjoyed my work, but I had been also running a martial arts studio by night. I was a volunteer executive director of a Afro-Brazilian martial art group in San Francisco. So for 11 years, I had been doing, you know, crazy hours, working during the day, martial arts at night, recruiting students on the streets of San Francisco, just, you know, doing all kinds of things. And I got pneumonia and I was like, ugh, turned 30 and I really wanted something different. So my journey was really more about kind of a career transition. I loved my work. And so that's why the first 10 years I worked in the field of training and development. And it was really, as I got toward the latter stage of doing so much work in organizations, that I noticed there was a pattern of people who were definitely interested in starting their own business. This was 2004 that I was kind of thinking of the idea, right? 2005. It was before Facebook and Twitter and all of these things now that we totally take for granted, right?
Yep.
And I actually took a class by a woman, Suzanne Falter, called Get Known Now. And so my objective, yes, right?
Yes.
That's probably where we first met. Yeah. So my objective really, it definitely had a business purpose. I knew there were many people who wanted to quit their job to start a business because I had talked to many of them throughout the 10 years that I was in companies. Yeah. Ethically, I couldn't go back to companies that had paid me handsomely to retain employees to help people leave, right? That would be cool. So I started a blog as a way of really, you know, creating a platform. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't even know what a blog was. I had never heard of what a blog was, but it was one of the assignments in class. Little did I know it would change the entire trajectory of my life, you know? It's crazy.
Amazing, because blogs are really powerful tools. And I think if we look at them as tools and learn how to use them, that's what happens. So I neglected to say that Pam Slim is our keynote for Friday at the 2016 conference, and that's one of the reasons I'm so excited. So Pam, the other thing our bloggers are looking to do is exactly what happened to you, and help them understand that it didn't happen. Help them understand that it was something that you pursued, and maybe there were some failures along the way and there was a learning curve. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I imagine everybody, I'm excited to talk to folks there to really figure out everybody's individual journey. But I imagine for many of them, they're trying to figure out a way to harness their passions and interests in a way to make a living, right? As we all do.
Mm-hmm.
So what I said in Escape from Cubicle Nation is hating your job intensely is not a business plan, right?
Yeah.
and a blog is not a magic vehicle. Now we've seen podcasts come about and many, many more expressions of how it is that we can be sharing ideas that are vehicles for sharing a message that resonates with a particular audience. And so the fundamentals that I always come to is not just like we can't worship a work mode, right? We worship working for yourself as if it's just the end all be all and everything else is evil incarnate. And that's just not true.
No.
Doing work around your passion never can avoid the fundamentals of what makes a great business.
Mm-hmm.
You have a true need in the marketplace. You have a clearly defined audience that needs their problems solved. You have a product or service that is very valuable to that audience, and that audience has the means to pay for what it is that you're offering. And then you are willing to do the work to go out and find that audience, right? And find your customers.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is it. So
Yeah.
it is something, I will say over and over, there are many business fundamental kind of things that I did in order to grow my business and my platform. And there's some things that I can't even explain. Like it feels like it's magic, the way that the internet is, like some of the connections that I made, the opportunities that I've had, like there's definitely a part to it that's magic. But I had somebody asked the other day, I had a really wonderful connection, just a timely connection at this time in 2006 with Guy Kawasaki, who now is a dear friend. He's a venture capitalist, very well-known author and blogger. And in 2006, if you remember, you probably remember those days, he had the hot blog, right? He was a featured typepad, both on typepad at that time, and he was like a featured blogger. So I started reading his stuff, and I was like, this guy is such a cool cat. I love what he says. He was, evangelist at Apple and everything. So I sent him a post that I had written one night on a whim, never having met him, sending an email. And as it happened, he ended up posting about that the next day on his blog. And I went from, no readers to 20,000 readers and just got huge, one of those crazy viral experiences. The only one really, the only one I've ever had in 20 years in business. So somebody was like, how do you make that happen? I want to do the same thing. To which there just is no answer. It's like winning the lottery. I love what Guy said once. We did a panel at South by Southwest on blog to book, right? Like my publisher found through my blog, and that's one of the ways they picked me up. But he was saying, people say that he has the golden touch, as if what he touches turns to gold. And he said, I do have the golden touch, but it's because I only touch gold. So it was a great reminder that keeps me super honest, and it's where the conversations I have with my clients, the best way for you to put yourself in the position of getting exposure, of having opportunities for people to see what you're doing, is to be solving real problems, to be creating really wonderful, unique work, to be just feeling your voice and having some fun and experimenting and taking risks, right, with how you write. I feel like I really found my voice while blogging, but there is no magic formula, nor, channeling the martial artist in me, do I necessarily think that it's the best thing when you're first starting to just get massive success. Have you ever seen that? A startup gets massive funding, some huge exposure, and you don't actually have the emotional experience, the infrastructure, the sometimes just, know-how in order to handle all of that kind of attention. So there's nothing wrong with taking small steps every day. But what I'd like for people to be thinking about is it always starts with that foundation of solving real problems for people who have the means to pay for that which you're selling.
Yeah, I think that is such a key point. I'll tell you a little side story about Guy Kawasaki. So on my blog, Lipsticking, way back in those early days, I did the Smart Woman, Smart Man Online. I believe I interviewed you once. I have to go back and find those.
Oh, yeah.
But I interviewed Guy Kawasaki, and he was one of my Smart Man Online interviews. And I said to him, at that time he didn't have a blog. I said, why aren't you blogging? You should be blogging. You're so smart and you have so much to share. And he's like, I'm too busy to blog. And, 6 months later, he had a blog. And I wrote to him and said, you started a blog because I told you to. But, a little side fun thing back from
I love that. So it's thanks to you that he started blogging. I found him and I had internet fame. See
the connections. It's the connections that you make that happen almost like you said earlier, magically, and yet they don't, because I was actively looking for people to interview, and that's how that came about. So, following now directly along this path, even when business isn't always a direct path, isn't the internet just like too full? People say to me all the time, my community says, there's no room for me. There's so many people out there trying to do what I'm doing. What would you say to someone when they say that to you?
This is probably having traveled around the country many times and, doing client work, book tours, all that kind of thing. The metaphor I think about is that we're all on this tiny little island, those of us who are super in the middle of the internet and blogging and all of that, right? And we all have these signs like, read my stuff, and we're all marching in this little circle, and we can't turn around 1 foot without seeing somebody else who's doing it. In the meantime, there's 7 continents of people who have no idea who the hell Guy Kawasaki is, or I am, or Seth Godin, or people who I was speaking at a conference recently to a bunch of training folks, right? Training folks within large corporations, and I was like, oh, like in Creative Live, you guys know Creative Live. Nobody in the entire room knew what Creative Live was, and I was like, my mind was blown. Like, these are people who are in the industry of training and development.
Yeah.
And I said, like Dan Pink wrote. Dan Pink is one of my total heroes, my High Council of Jedi Knights.
I agree.
Like, Dan who? Right? So
yeah.
Yes, if we are all following the same people and we're orbiting around each other on this tiny little island, you're right. But I dare you to just look at your own neighborhood. Here I am looking out my window in Mesa, Arizona. I guarantee you, if I just went door to door knocking, if I didn't, maybe get dog sicked on me or shot or something here can happen, that I could probably find a whole bunch of people who had never read a blog, who didn't know what a blog was, who had no idea who all of these people are. There are so many people out there who are looking for solutions to problems. So the key for you is to be creative about where it is that you can reach people, and you just never know. I have one person on my newsletter list who is a professor, and I wrote this one post about like feeling uncomfortable and doing community building and kind of reaching out into new groups and new communities. And he said, I'm a professor from India and I just moved to Burma and I was feeling so, uncomfortable in this situation. I read your, newsletter article and it was so helpful. And I'm thinking, never in a million years would I imagine that this wonderful professor in India moving to Burma would find the inspiration for what it is that I wrote. But there are billions of people on the planet, so sometimes that's not helpful because it's so overwhelming. But think about it just from your own community. Go and ask your immediate neighbors if they know all the superstars that we're worried that are crowding our market. And I just about guarantee, first, they have no idea what you actually do, if it's anything like the soccer parents on my kids' team, And so start there. And then I bet that there's opportunities to make new connections.
I so agree. I just joined a women's group locally here in Denver, and they look at me with this blog. We don't, we've heard the term, but we don't know what it is. So whole group of women that I'm like, okay, great, let's talk. But yes, I also, that is a great analogy, and that's a great way to look at it, because in the big world, you can have your niche. And I think one of the things we do is try to inspire our community to figure out what that niche is. To your point, who are you talking to, and will they pay for what you're doing? So let's move on just a little and talk about who influenced you back in the early Escape from Cubicle Nation days. Who got you really
big
fired up?
Influencers for me were definitely Guy Kawasaki, Kathy Sierra, who I still love so dearly.
Yeah.
With creating passionate users when she was kind of forced off the internet. But she is
another story.
Her voice to me was so amazing and so strong and powerful. Nancy Duarte, Gar Reynolds from Presentation Zen, Seth Godin, Dan Pink, those really for me were like some of my really early blogging heroes. Hugh MacLeod from Gaping Void. And it was, that was part of that whole amazing magical mystery tour, is when I was first starting, and I was so amazed and so excited, like reading and learning about blogging, that eventually it with social media, especially now, like you can really break down a lot of barriers. And I've ended up over time, slowly really building relationships with a lot of these people who I just considered to be, totally out of my reach. Because starting out, I've been in business for 10 years, but I had zero experience in the specific field that I was doing of helping people leave a job to start a business. I had done it myself. I had business experience building teams and organizations, but it was, it was kind of a huge risk. So it's just very amazing to me to look back and see all that's been accomplished.
Well, gee, we could talk forever, but you know how people's attention spans are online, and
yes, I do. We've already passed that by like 8 minutes, because
I know they are going to meet you at BlogPaws, and it's going to be so fabulous. So I'm going to end with a question about pets. And do you have pets? And if you do, how do they fit into your family dynamic?
Boy, do we have pets. So we have 3 dogs. We have DC, who's a Pomeranian mix, who we adopted about 4 years ago. And then we have Rocky, who is a Chihuahua, who is was 3 years old, who my husband, I was at a birthday party for my kids, and my husband said, "Oh, I'm bringing something back as a treat." And I was like, "Oh, ice cream, that's awesome." And he was a baby Chihuahua. So it was like, what? Right when I was writing body of work, because you know who it was taking care of the baby Chihuahua. That would be me while writing. But now I can't live without him. And then this Christmas, totally unexpectedly, on Christmas Day, we found a dog that was just abandoned in the neighborhood. And his name is Silly, which is a Navajo word for little billy goat. My husband is Navajo. And it turns out he belonged to a roommate. There were a group of roommates lived in our neighborhood, but they really didn't take care of him, and they were always out of town, wandering and freezing. So after we kind of home sat him for a week, they were like, you know what, maybe you should just adopt him. So that is our newest family member, is Silly. And I think we can bring them to the event. So I'll just have to figure out to make sure my husband is there with me so he can watch the dogs while I'm speaking. But nobody will care, right? If like I have
you could be on stage with them if they like that. They can sit in the audience with your husband, or they can go to the pet park. We also have a pet park. Occasionally people want that break, and they don't want to leave their pets in their room, so we have a pet park. We have a big dog and a small dog pet park. So, yep, we try to take care of everybody and their pets. I mean, that was a goal of BlogPaws when we started in the very, very beginning. And we do not go anywhere that pets are not welcome throughout the hotel, so even in the eating areas at breakfast and lunch, you will see people with pets. So,
that's so cool. I'm so excited about it. Yeah, we just, they're totally family members. I never had dogs before. We grew up with cats and guinea pigs and rats and snakes and just about everything you can imagine. My brother was really into animals, but we never had dogs. And now I don't know how we ever survive without them. They really are just total members of our family.
Well, thank you so much. And I'm excited about seeing you keynote on Friday. So thank you for doing this today. Also, we'll let you know when it goes live. Maggie?
Thank you so much, and thank you for watching. You can visit blogpaws.com for more information about the conference or to register. Thank you.
Thanks.